The white walls of the medical room seemed to press in around Kethver as he sat in the uncomfortable chair. His blue skin had lost its usual shine, and dark marks covered his arms where the human weapons had burned him. His 4 eyes kept moving around the room, never staying in one place for too long. The chair creaked under his weight as he shifted nervously. Dr. Velthus sat across from him with a small recording device between them on the metal table. The doctor's purple tentacles moved slowly as he prepared his notes. This was not a normal meeting. Battle commanders of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet did not usually ask for help from mind doctors. They were supposed to be strong, fearless leaders who could face any enemy, but Kethver was different now. Something had broken inside him during the war on the planet the humans called Earth. The other soldiers whispered about it in the halls. They said he would wake up screaming at night. They said he jumped at loud noises. They said he was afraid of his own shadow. "Begin when you are ready, Commander," Dr. Velthus said in a soft voice. His tentacles touched the recording device, and a small green light appeared. Kethver's claws scratched against the table as he gripped it tightly. His breathing was fast and shallow. When he spoke, his voice shook like a leaf in the wind. "We thought it would be easy," he began. "The report said the humans were nothing special. Just another primitive species that had barely learned to leave their own planet. Our intelligence officers classified them as Class C. That meant they were weak, scared creatures who would surrender after the first attack." Dr. Velthus made a note on his pad. "What did the reports tell you about their weapons?" "Simple projectile weapons. Metal bullets fired from chemical explosions. Some nuclear weapons, but old and slow. Their ships could not even travel faster. Then light. They were stuck in their own solar system like bugs in a jar." Kethver's eyes grew distant as he remembered. "We had energy weapons, plasma cannons, shield technology they could not even imagine. Our ships could cross the galaxy in days. We had conquered 47 worlds before theirs." The commander paused and looked at his scarred hands. "The war. Council met for only 1 hour. Fleet Admiral Greyktal said we would be home in a week. He said the humans would probably surrender when they saw our ships in their sky." Some of the younger officers laughed. They made jokes about collecting human trinkets to take home to their families. "But you had doubts?" Dr. Velthus asked. "No." Kethver shook his head quickly. "No doubts at all. I was excited. This was going to be my 15th conquest. I had my medal ready for when we returned. I even told my mate that I would bring her something pretty from the human world." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the air system. Kethver stared at the wall behind the doctor's head. His 4 eyes seemed to see something that was not there. "Tell me about the approach to their planet," Dr. Velthus prompted gently. "We jumped out of hyperspace at the edge of their solar system. Standard procedure. Give them time to see us coming. Time to think about surrendering." The fleet was beautiful. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, fighters, support vessels. The humans had never seen anything like it. Kethver's breathing became faster. "We sent the usual message. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to serve the Empire. Resist and face total destruction." We gave them 24 of their hours to respond. What was their response? Nothing. Complete silence. Not a single transmission. Admiral Greyktal thought their communication systems were too primitive to reach us. He ordered the fleet to move closer to their world. We would show them our power up close. Dr. Velthus noticed that Kethver's claws had scratched deep marks in the metal table. The commander's whole body was tense like a spring ready to snap. As we approached their planet, our sensors picked up their military forces. Small aircraft, primitive missiles, ships that moved through water instead of space. Everything looked exactly like the intelligence reports said it would. Weak, helpless, easy to destroy. But something felt wrong. The doctor asked. Kethver was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Their planet was so small, so blue and white and beautiful. It reminded me of the water gardens on my homeworld. I remember thinking that it was a shame to destroy something so pretty. You thought you would destroy it? Standard procedure. Level their cities, eliminate their military, force the survivors to work in our mines. We had done it 47 times before. The formula never changed. Kethver's eyes focused on the doctor again, but this time was different. This time, they fought back. The commander stood up suddenly and walked to the small window. Outside, the Zephyrian capital city stretched toward the horizon under the light of their twin suns. Everything was orderly, peaceful, civilized. The first attack came when we were still in high orbit. Not from their surface, not from their moon, but from somewhere in the empty space between. Missiles that our sensors could not track. They moved too fast, changed direction too quickly. 3 of our scout ships were destroyed before we even knew we were under attack. Dr. Velthus looked up from his notes. The reports said human technology was primitive. The reports were wrong. Kethver's fist hit the window with a loud bang. The reports were completely wrong. Those missiles were not primitive. They were guided by some kind of intelligence that could think faster than our computers. They learned from each attack, adapted to our defenses, found weaknesses we did not even know we had. How did you respond? Admiral Grake Toll ordered the fleet to activate defensive screens and return fire. Our plasma cannons lit up the darkness like a storm of lightning. We poured enough energy into space to melt a small moon. But the human missiles kept coming. They danced around our weapons like they were playing a game. Kethver returned to his chair but did not sit down. He paced back and forth like a caged animal. Then their ships appeared. Not from their planet, but from the asteroid belt, from behind their moon, from the shadows of their gas giants. They had been hiding, waiting for us to come closer. It was a trap. What kind of ships? Nothing like we expected. Some were clearly military vessels, but others looked like cargo haulers, passenger ships, even what appeared to be mining equipment. They should have been easy targets. But they moved like fighters, struck like warships, and disappeared like ghosts. The commander stopped pacing and looked directly at Dr. Velthus. All 4 of his eyes were wide, with something that looked like terror. That was when I realized we were not fighting a primitive species. We were fighting something that had been pretending to be primitive. Something that had been watching us, studying us, preparing for us. The humans had known we were coming long before we arrived. Dr. Velthus set down his writing tool. How could they have known? I do not know. I still do not know. But they knew our tactics, our weapons, our weaknesses. They knew things about us that we did not know about ourselves. Kethver's voice cracked. They were ready for us, Doctor. They were more than ready. They were eager. The recording device continued to hum softly as both aliens sat in silence. Outside the window, the peaceful city continued its daily routine, unaware that one of their greatest military commanders had just admitted to being outfought by a species they had thought was helpless. Would you like to continue, Commander? Dr. Velthus asked softly. Kethver nodded slowly. Yes, you need to hear all of it. The Empire needs to know what we faced out there. What we woke up when we attacked their world. He sat back down and folded his hands on the table. But first, Doctor, I need you to understand something. The humans we fought were not soldiers in the way we understand soldiers. They were something else entirely. Something that should never have existed in civilized galaxy. What do you mean? I mean they were born for war. Every single one of them. Dr. Velthus adjusted his position in his chair as Kethver continued his story. The commander's 4 eyes were still moving around the room, but now they seemed to be looking at memories instead of searching for danger. The space battle lasted 6 hours, Kethver said. We lost 30 ships before Admiral Greg Tile ordered us to fall back and regroup. 30 ships, Doctor. Against a species that was supposed to surrender without a fight. Where did you regroup? High orbit around there. Largest moon. The Admiral was furious. He kept screaming that the intelligence reports were wrong, that someone had lied to him about human capabilities. But I could see the fear in his eyes. We all could. Cuthver's claws scratched the table again. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about those human ships. The way they moved was wrong. Our ships are designed for efficiency, for maximum firepower and protection. But the human ships moved like they were alive. Like they were thinking. Dr. Velthus made another note. What was your next move? Ground assault. If we could not defeat them in space, we would land on their planet and crush their cities. The Admiral chose a target in what the humans called North America. A military base built into a mountain. Our sensors showed it was heavily defended but small. Only a few hundred human soldiers. The commander stood and walked to the window again. His reflection in the glass looked tired and old. I was given command of the first wave, 500 of our best warriors. Elite troops who had never lost a battle. We had energy weapons, powered armor, personal shields. Each one of my soldiers was worth 10 of theirs. How did the landing go? Perfect. Our dropships put us down exactly where we planned. The human base was built into solid rock, but our weapons could cut through stone like water. We surrounded the entire mountain in minutes. This was going to be easy. Kethver turned away from the window. The first human I saw was standing at the main entrance to their base. He was not running or hiding. He was just standing there, waiting. For us, a tall male with short brown hair and scars on his face. He wore their primitive camouflage uniform and carried one of their projectile weapons. Just one human? Just one. I thought he was a messenger, coming to surrender. My translator unit picked up his words when he spoke into a small communication device. He said, "This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison. The aliens are here. All units. Weapons free. Let's show them what Marines can do." Dr. Velthus noticed that Kethver's breathing had become faster again. The commander's hands were shaking slightly. Marines. That was the first time I heard that word. I did not know what it meant then. I wish I still did not know. What happened next? Morrison threw down his communication device and raised his. Weapon, 1 human against 500 Zephyrian warriors. I almost felt sorry for him. I ordered my troops to give him a chance to surrender. Kethver laughed, but it was not a happy sound. He laughed at us, actually laughed. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, "Come and take it." He challenged all of you. Not just challenged, he meant it. This one human, with his primitive weapon and no armor, was ready to fight. All of us. I thought he was insane. Now I know better. He was not insane. He was human. The commander sat back down and put his head in his hands. I gave the order to advance. My warriors moved forward in perfect formation, shields up, weapons ready. Morrison waited until we were 50 meters away. Then he opened fire. His weapon. Was that effective? No, his weapon was nothing special. Metal bullets that bounced off our shields like raindrops. But while he was shooting, other humans appeared. They came out of holes in the ground, from behind rocks, from inside the mountain itself. Dozens of them. They had been hiding, waiting for us to get close. Dr. Velthus stopped writing. An ambush? The first of many. But this was different from any ambush we had ever faced. These humans did not hit us and run away. They hit us and kept hitting us. They threw themselves at our lines like they did not care if they died. Kethver's voice became very quiet. I watched one of their soldiers, a young male they called. Danny Walsh, charge straight at a group of my warriors. He was carrying some kind of explosive device. My soldiers hit him with plasma fire, but he kept running even as his body burned. He reached them and triggered his explosive. The blast destroyed 5 of my best troops. He killed himself to harm your soldiers? Yes, but that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. Another human, a female named Lisa. Carter saw Walsh die. She screamed something about avenging him and ran straight at my command group. The commander's 4 eyes were wide with remembered terror. She was smaller than Walsh, much smaller. But when she reached us, she became something else, something terrible. She moved faster than our tracking systems could follow. Her knife went through our armor like it was made of paper. A knife? Against energy weapons? She was too fast, too close. Our weapons are designed for long-range combat. When she got inside our formation, we could not shoot without hitting each other. And she knew this. Somehow she knew this. Dr. Velthus set down his writing tool. How did she know your tactics? I do not know. But she fought like she had studied us for years. Every move she made was designed to counter our strengths and exploit our weaknesses. In less than 2 minutes, she had killed 3 of my warriors and wounded 4 others. Kethver stood and began pacing again. Then Morrison called for something. Called close air support. Human aircraft appeared from nowhere and began attacking my troops with guided missiles. But these were not normal missiles. They could change targets in flight, avoid our defensive fire, even follow our soldiers when they tried to retreat. How many casualties did you take? 47 dead, 63 wounded. Against less than 100 humans. We had energy weapons, armor, shields, and numerical superiority. They had primitive projectiles and metal knives, but they won. The room was silent for a long moment. Dr. Velthus could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Zephyrian military had never lost a ground engagement. They were the finest warriors in the galaxy. What did you do? I called for retreat. For the first time in my career, I ordered my troops to fall back. The humans let us go. They could have followed us, could have finished us off. But they did not. Morrison stood at the entrance to their base and watched us leave. He was covered in blood, some of it his own, but he was still standing. Kethver stopped pacing and looked directly at the doctor. As we lifted off, I heard him talking to his surviving soldiers. He was not celebrating victory. He was not boasting about defeating us. He was mourning his dead comrades and planning for our return. He expected you to come back. He knew we would come back. And he was already preparing for it. That night, from orbit, we watched the human base transform. More soldiers arrived. New weapons were brought in. Defensive positions were built. They worked all night without rest. The commander's voice cracked, but the worst part was the singing. Singing, the humans sang while they worked. Not victory songs or battle chants. Sad songs about their fallen friends. About Danny Walsh and the others who had died. They were grieving and preparing for war at the same time. Dr. Velthus made a note about human emotional responses to combat losses. What was your assessment of the engagement? I told Admiral Greightall that we had encountered something unprecedented. Humans who fought without fear of death, who used their own bodies as weapons, who seemed to know our tactics better than we did ourselves. How did the Admiral respond? He accused me of cowardice, said no primitive species could defeat Zephyrian warriors. He ordered me to attack the base again the next day with twice as many troops. Kethver sat down heavily in his chair. I tried to explain that these were not normal primitives, that something was different about them. But he would not listen. He said the Empire's reputation was at stake. So you attacked again? Yes, with 1,000 warriors this time. Heavy weapons, air support, orbital bombardment. We turned half the mountain into glass before we landed. The commander's 4 eyes closed. Morrison was still there. Still standing. at the entrance, still waiting for us. His uniform was torn and burned from the bombardment, but he was still alive. Still ready to fight. What did he say this time? The same thing. Come and take it. But now I understood what those words really meant. They were not a challenge, they were a promise. A promise that every step we took toward that base would cost us blood. Dr. Valethus looked at his notes. The story was becoming more disturbing with each detail. Did you take the base? Kethver opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. Doctor, we tried for 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting. We threw everything we had at them. But for every human we killed, they seemed to become stronger, more determined, more dangerous. How is that possible? I do not know. But I saw it happen. When Carter finally fell on the 2nd day, 2 more humans took her place. When Morrison was wounded on the 3rd day, a female called Sergeant Rodriguez stepped forward to lead them. The commander's voice became very quiet. By the end of the 3rd day, we had lost over 300 warriors. The humans had lost maybe 50, and they were still fighting. Still singing their sad songs. Still mourning their dead while they prepared to kill more of us. What ended the battle? Dr. Valethus refilled his water container and settled back into his chair. Kethver had been talking for over an hour, and the story was becoming more disturbing with each detail. The commander sat hunched over the table, his blue skin pale, and his 4 eyes unfocused. After the mountain base incident, what did Admiral Greigtull decide to do? The doctor asked. Kethver lifted his head slowly. He was furious, completely furious. 3 days of fighting, hundreds of casualties, and we had accomplished nothing. The humans were still there, still fighting, still sending their reports to whoever was listening. Did you attempt another ground assault? No, the Admiral decided to change tactics. He ordered our intelligence teams to monitor human communications across their entire planet. If we could understand how they talk to each other, we could disrupt their coordination and defeat them piece by piece. The commander's claws drummed nervously on the table. What we discovered changed everything. Doctor, these humans had built something we had never seen before, a communication network that covered their entire world. Dr. Valethus made a note. Like our military command structure? No, nothing like that. Our system is organized, controlled, from the top down. The Emperor speaks to his generals, who speak to their colonels, who speak to their captains. If you destroy the center, the whole system falls apart. Kethver stood and began his nervous pacing again. The human system was different. Every single human could talk to every other human instantly. Their network had no center, no single point of failure. It was like their entire species was one giant brain. How is that possible? They called it the Internet. A web of connections that linked every human device, every human mind. When our forces attacked the base in North America, humans on the other side of their planet knew about it within minutes. They knew our weapons, our tactics, our weaknesses. The commander stopped pacing and looked directly at the doctor. But that was just the beginning. Within hours of our first attack, human scientists and engineers all over their world were working together to find ways to fight us. Working together how? Sharing information instantly. A scientist in their country called Japan would discover something about our shield technology and share it with an engineer in America. That engineer would improve the discovery and send it to a weapons designer in Europe. The weapons designer would create a new weapon and send the plans to factories around their world. Dr. Valethus set down his writing tool. All of this happened during the battle, while we were still fighting. Doctor, I watched human forces adapt to our tactics in real time. We would use a new weapon, and within hours they had developed a defense against it. We would change our formation, and they would counter it before we finished moving. Kethver's voice became strained. There was one human, a naval officer called Captain Ryan Brooks. Our intelligence teams intercepted his communications during the second day of fighting. He was on a ship in their ocean, thousands of kilometers from the battle. What was he doing? He was studying pieces of our destroyed spacecraft that had fallen into their water. While we were fighting his comrades on land, he was taking apart our technology with tools that should have been useless against our advanced materials. The commander sat back down and put his head in his hands. Within 6 hours, Brooks had figured out how our energy shields worked. 6 hours, Doctor. Our own scientists took years to develop that technology, and this human understood it in less than a day. That seems impossible. I thought so too. But then he did something even more impossible. He improved it. This human, using primitive tools and salvaged parts, created a shield generator that was more efficient than ours. Dr. Veilthus looked up from his notes. More efficient how? It used less power, covered a larger area, and could adapt to different types of attacks. He called it reverse engineering with American ingenuity. I still do not know what American ingenuity means, but I fear it. Cuthbert's 4 eyes were wide with remembered terror. But Brooks did not keep his discovery to himself. He shared the design with every human on their planet through their internet. Within 12 hours, human forces everywhere were building improved shield generators. 12 hours? We watched their factories change their production lines. Factories that had been making civilian goods suddenly started producing military equipment. Car factories made tank parts. Electronics companies made guidance systems for missiles. Even their food processing plants were converted to make explosives. The commander stood and walked to the window. Outside, the peaceful Zephian city continued its orderly existence. Their entire civilization became a war machine overnight. Every human, from children to elderly, was part of the effort. They called it total war. Double quotes. Dr. Veilthus made several quick notes. How did they coordinate such a massive effort? Through their network. They had something they called social media, where millions of humans could share information instantly. When Brooks published his shield design, it was seen by every human scientist within minutes. When a factory in China developed a new anti-aircraft weapon, the plans were in American hands before the first prototype was finished. Cuthbert turned from the window. But the most terrifying part was how they shared tactical information. Every human soldier who fought us sent reports through their network. Our strengths, our weaknesses, our battle plans, everything was shared instantly with every other human force. They created a collective intelligence. Exactly. We were not fighting individual human armies. We were fighting the combined knowledge and experience of their entire species. Every mistake we made was learned from. Every tactic we used was countered. Every weapon we deployed was studied and defeated. The commander's voice cracked. There was a human woman, Dr. Amanda Foster, who worked at one of their research facilities. She had never seen combat, never held a weapon, but she was connected to soldiers on the front lines through their network. What did she do? She analyzed the reports from every battle in real time. She identified patterns in our behavior, weaknesses in our equipment, flaws in our strategies. Then she shared her analysis with human military commanders across their planet. Keffer sat down heavily. Foster's work led to the development of what they called smart ammunition, bullets and missiles, that could learn from each shot, that became more accurate the more they were used against us. Learning ammunition? Each projectile contained a small computer that communicated with all the others. When one bullet missed its target, it would analyze why and share that information. The next bullet would adjust accordingly. After a few dozen shots, their weapons became almost impossible to avoid. Dr. Veilthus stopped writing and stared at the commander. Their bullets talked to each other? Not just bullets, everything. Their tanks, aircraft, ships. Even individual soldiers were connected through their network. They fought like a single organism with millions of eyes and hands. Cuthbert's breathing became rapid again. I remember one engagement where we tried to surround a human position. We moved our forces in a classic pincer formation, attacking from 3 sides simultaneously. It should have been impossible for them to counter. What happened? They knew we were coming. Before we moved, their network had analyzed our radio transmissions, predicted our strategy, and prepared countermeasures. When we attacked, we found empty positions and booby traps. The commander's claws scratched deep grooves in the table. The real human forces had repositioned during the night. They hit us from behind while we were attacking empty ground. We lost 200 warriors in 20 minutes. How did they predict your movements so accurately? A human called Colonel Steve Martinez had created what they called predictive algorithms, computer programs that could analyze our past behavior and guess our future actions. The more we fought, the better these programs became at predicting us. Dr. Valthus made more notes, so their network was learning from every encounter, learning and adapting faster than we could change. Martinez shared his algorithms with military commanders around their world. Soon, every human force could predict our tactics before we used them. Cuthbert stood and began pacing in small circles. But the worst part was their industrial capacity. We had destroyed their major cities, their ports, their power plants. By all logic, their war production should have collapsed. But it didn't. It got stronger. They had humans like Tech Sergeant Kelly Adams who understood their internet better than anyone. When we destroyed their central communication hubs, Adams created new networks using civilian technology. The commander's voice rose with remembered panic. She connected car radios, television broadcasts, even their children's toys into a communication system. The more we tried to break their network, the more creative they became at rebuilding it. Their network became self-repairing. Worse than that, it became stronger each time we damaged it. Adams called it distributed redundancy. Every part of their network could replace every other part. There was no way to destroy it completely. Cuthbert stopped pacing and gripped the back of his chair. Within a week of our first attack, human factories that had been destroyed were rebuilt and producing twice as many weapons. Transportation networks we had bombed were replaced with new routes that were harder to target. Dr. Valthus noticed that his hands were shaking slightly as he prepared a fresh writing pad. The story Cuthbert was telling challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare and civilization. The commander sat slumped in his chair, staring at nothing. "Tell me about the orbital bombardment," Dr. Valthus said softly. Cuthbert's 4 eyes slowly focused on the doctor. It began at dawn on their planet. Admiral Greg Toll ordered every ship in our fleet to target human population centers. We had enough firepower to crack continents, to boil their oceans, to strip away their atmosphere. What was the human response? Nothing at first. Their cities went silent. No communications, no movement, no signs of life. We thought they had given up, that the sight of our fleet preparing to destroy them had finally broken their spirit. The commander's claws scratched the table. We were wrong. They were not giving up. They were preparing. Dr. Valthus made a note. Preparing how? The bombardment began with their military targets. We destroyed their air bases, their naval ports, their missile silos. Massive explosions lit up their planet like a second sun. But as we watched, something impossible happened. Cuthbert stood and walked to the window. Ships began rising from their oceans. Not military vessels, but civilian craft. Cargo ships, fishing boats, passenger ferries, even small pleasure craft. Hundreds of them, all heading directly toward our fleet. Civilian ships attacked your fleet? They did not attack. They charged. These vessels had no weapons that could harm us, no shields that could protect them. They should have been destroyed instantly by our defensive systems. The commander's voice became strained. But they kept coming. Ship after ship, charging straight at us while we destroyed them. It made no sense. It was like watching insects throw themselves at fire. Dr. Velthus looked up from his notes. What was their purpose? I did not understand at first. But then our sensors detected massive energy buildups inside the human vessels. They had filled their ships with explosives, with nuclear weapons, with anything that could cause damage. Kethver's breathing became rapid. They were turning their entire civilian fleet into bombs. And they were piloting them personally. Human crews stayed aboard those ships, knowing they would die, just to get close enough to hurt us. Suicide. Attacks? Worse than that. These were not desperate last stands. These attacks were coordinated, planned, strategic. Each ship targeted a specific weakness in our formation. They had studied our defensive patterns and found ways to exploit them. The commander sat back down heavily. There was one human, a naval commander called Nick Patterson. He was piloting what they called a tugboat, a small vessel designed to push larger ships around their harbors. What made him significant? Patterson had loaded his tugboat with every nuclear weapon he could find. As he approached our flagship, he sent a message on all frequencies. He said, "Tell your emperor that humanity sends its regards." Then he rammed our dreadnought at full speed. Dr. Velthus stopped writing. The impact destroyed your flagship? The impact was nothing. His little ship should have been vaporized against our shields. But Patterson had timed his attack perfectly. He struck just as our main guns were firing at his planet. For a split second, our shields were down to allow the energy beam to pass through. Kethver's 4 eyes were wide with remembered terror. Patterson's nuclear payload detonated inside our shield perimeter. The explosion destroyed the flagship, damaged 6 other vessels, and killed Admiral Greg Tal and half the fleet command staff. One small ship destroyed your flagship. One human who was willing to die to protect his species. But Patterson was not alone. All across the battle zone, human pilots were making similar attacks. They called it the Battle of New York Harbor, and they were singing while they died. The commander's voice cracked. "Doctor, they were singing. Battle songs, patriotic hymns, even children's lullabies. As they flew to their deaths, they sang to each other over their communication networks." Dr. Velthus made several quick notes. "How many ships did you lose?" 43 vessels destroyed, 31 damaged beyond repair. Almost half our fleet, eliminated by civilian craft piloted by humans who threw their lives away like they meant nothing. Kethver stood and began pacing again. But that was just the beginning. While the space battle raged, human ground forces were mounting attacks on our scattered landing parties. These were not the organized military units we had fought before. What kind of forces? Civilians, office workers, teachers, shop owners, children barely old enough to hold weapons. They had no training, no military equipment, no chance of victory. But they attacked anyway. The commander's claws dug deep grooves in the metal table. There was a human installation built into a mountain, a place they called Norad. We had bombed it repeatedly, but the humans inside refused to surrender. How long did they hold out? 6 days. 6 days against constant bombardment, with no resupply, no reinforcement, no hope of rescue. The commander was a female called Colonel Beth Harrison. She had maybe 200 soldiers against thousands of our troops. Double quotes. Dr. Velthus looked up. What made this battle different? Harrison and her people never stopped fighting. But more than that, they never stopped laughing. Doctor, even as our weapons tore their mountain apart, even as their friends died around them, these humans were making jokes. Kethver's voice became quiet with wonder. I monitored their communications during the siege. Between battle reports and casualty updates, they shared stories about their families, jokes about our appearance, even recipes for their native foods. They maintained morale through humor, more than morale. They maintained their humanity. Harrison's final transmission, broadcast on all frequencies as her position was overrun, was not a plea for help or a curse against us. She said, "This is NORD base. We are still here. We are still human. And we remember everything." The commander sat down and put his head in his hands. "We remember everything." "Those words haunt me, Doctor. What did they mean?" Dr. Valthus made a note about human psychological warfare. What happened after NORAD fell? The humans stopped playing defense. Up until that point, they had been reacting to our attacks, trying to protect their cities and people. But something changed after Harrison's death. Changed how? They became predators. Human forces began hunting our scattered units using tactics we had never seen before. They would appear from nowhere, strike with devastating force, then vanish before we could respond. Kethver's 4 eyes darted around the room. There was a human admiral, Tony Rodriguez, who commanded their Pacific Fleet. What remained of it after our bombardment? Maybe 50 ships against our 200. Another impossible battle? Rodriguez did something that still makes no sense to me. Instead of fighting us ship to ship, he ordered his entire fleet to retreat to the center of their Pacific Ocean. We followed, thinking he was trying to escape. The commander's breathing became labored. When we reached the middle of the ocean, Rodriguez sent us a message. He said, "You want to see what humans do when they have nothing left to lose? Watch this." What did he do? He detonated every nuclear weapon his civilization had placed in the Pacific Ocean. Not just the weapons on his ships, but warheads they had positioned on the seafloor, in underwater bases, even in their submarine fleet. Dr. Valthus stopped. Writing entirely, he destroyed his own ocean? He turned the entire Pacific into a nuclear explosion. The electromagnetic pulse disabled every ship in our fleet within 1,000 kilometers. Our shields failed, our weapons went dead, our engines stopped working. Kethver's voice rose with panic. Rodriguez's ships were destroyed too. Every human in the Pacific Fleet died in that explosion, but they had prepared for this. Their ships were shielded against electromagnetic effects. As our vessels fell helpless into their ocean, human submarines rose from the depths and began destroying us. They sacrificed their fleet to disable yours. They sacrificed more than their fleet. That explosion poisoned their ocean for generations, made vast areas of their planet uninhabitable. Rodriguez knew this would happen, and he did it anyway. The commander stood and walked to the window. But the worst part was what Rodriguez said as he died. His final transmission, sent as the nuclear fire consumed his ship, was a message to other human commanders around the world. What did he say? Saud, Pacific Fleet mission accomplished. Ocean is denied to the enemy. Good hunting to all remaining human forces. Remember us when you reach their homeworld. Dr. Valthus set down his writing tool. Their homeworld? He was already planning to attack your planet. While dying in nuclear fire, while watching his entire fleet burn, Rodriguez was thinking about taking the war to us, about making us pay for what we had done to his world. Kethver's reflection in the window looked haunted. That was when I realized what we had unleashed. We had not conquered a primitive species. We had awakened something that would never stop fighting, never stop learning, never stop coming for us. What was the final casualty count from these battles? 2/3 of our invasion fleet destroyed or disabled. Tens of thousands of our best warriors dead. And the humans were still fighting, still coordinating through their network, still planning new ways to hurt us. The commander turned from the window. But they had paid a terrible price too. Their largest cities were in ruins. Dr. Valthus set down his writing pad and looked at the recording device. The small green light had been glowing for hours now, capturing every word of Kethver's terrifying story. The commander sat motionless in his chair, staring at his scarred hands. What happened when the human ships began following your fleet? The doctor asked quietly. Keffer did not look up. Admiral Kolseth ordered maximum speed retreat to the edge of their solar system. He thought we could outrun them, that their primitive ships would not be able to keep up with our advanced technology. Were you able to escape? For 3 days, yes. Our ships were faster, more advanced. The human vessels fell behind, and we thought we were safe. But on the 4th day, something happened that changed everything. The commander finally raised his 4 eyes to meet the doctor's gaze. The human ships disappeared from our sensors. All of them. One moment they were there, struggling to keep up with our fleet. The next moment, they were gone. Dr. Velthus made a note. Where did they go? We did not know. Admiral Kolseth thought they had given up, that their ships had broken down or run out of fuel. He ordered our fleet to slow down and begin repairs to the damaged vessels. Kefver's claws began scratching the table again. That night, while our ships were docked together for repairs, the humans appeared again. Not behind us where we expected them, but ahead of us. Somehow they had traveled faster than light without using hyperspace routes. How is that possible? They had improved our technology, made it better. While we were running away, they were studying the wreckage from our damaged ships. They learned from every piece of debris, every broken component. The commander stood and walked to the window. There was a human scientist called Dr. Paul Watson who had been working on something they called quantum tunneling. Using our hyperspace technology and their own theories, he had created a new form of faster-than-light travel. More advanced than yours? Much more advanced. Watson's ships could appear anywhere instantly, without following the hyperspace routes that limit our movement. They could travel through solid matter, through energy fields, through anything. Dr. Velthus stopped writing. They could travel through solid matter? Yes. The first sign we had of their new capability was when a human ship materialized inside one of our cruisers. Not next to it, not near it, but inside it. The human vessel appeared in our engine room and detonated. Kefver. Breathing became rapid. The ship was called the New York, commanded by Captain Alex Turner. Turner had been captured during the ground fighting, held prisoner on that very cruiser for 2 weeks. He had used that time to study our ship designs, learn our weaknesses. He escaped and then attacked. He was released in a prisoner exchange. But he remembered everything about that ship. When he materialized inside it with his new vessel, he knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. The commander's voice cracked. Turner sent a message before he detonated his ship. He said, "This is for Danny Walsh, for Beth Harrison. For everyone you killed on our world. We told you we remember everything." Dr. Velthus made several quick notes. How many ships did you lose to these attacks? 7 vessels destroyed in the first hour. The humans were not just attacking randomly. They had identified our most important ships, our command vessels, our supply transports. Each attack was precise, planned, devastating. Kefver sat back down and put his head in his hands. But the attack stopped as suddenly as they had begun. The human ships withdrew to a safe distance and sent us a communication. What did they say? The message came from a human female called Lieutenant Megan Clark. She had also been a prisoner, held on our flagship for 3 days before the exchange. Her voice was calm, professional, terrifying. The commander looked up at the doctor. Clark said, "Attention Zephyrian Fleet. You are now experiencing a small demonstration of human capabilities. We could destroy your entire fleet within minutes. Instead, we offer you a choice." What choice? Immediate withdrawal from human space and a promise never to return. In exchange, they would allow our surviving ships to leave unharmed. Dr. Velthus set down his writing tool. Admiral Kolseth accepted. He tried to negotiate. Said that the Zephyrian Empire did not make deals with primitive species. That we would fight to the last ship rather than surrender to humans. Kethver's 4 eyes closed. Clark's response was simple. She said, "Very well. But remember, you chose this." Then 30 more human ships appeared throughout our fleet formation and began destroying us systematically. 30 ships against your entire fleet? 30 ships that could appear anywhere, anytime without warning. Our weapons could not target them because they moved through dimensions we could not detect. Our shields could not stop them because they attacked from inside our defenses. The commander's voice became very quiet. In 20 minutes, we lost 60% of our remaining ships. The humans were not just destroying us. They were demonstrating their complete superiority. What ended the battle? Admiral Kolseth sent an unconditional surrender. Complete withdrawal from human space, immediate cessation of all hostile activities, and a promise never to return. Dr. Veilthus looked at his extensive notes. The humans accepted? They did. But Clark sent one final message that still haunts me. She said, "Your surrender is accepted. But understand this, we now know where you come from. We know about your empire, your other conquered worlds, your entire civilization." Kethver opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. She said, "We are giving you one chance to leave our space and never return. If any Zephyrian ship ever approaches Earth again, we will not just defend ourselves. We will come for your homeworld. A direct threat against the Empire. More than a threat, a promise." Clark's final words were, "We are humanity. We remember everything. And we never forgive those who hurt our family." The commander stood and walked to the window one last time. As our ships limped away from human space, I watched their vessels on our sensors. They were not pursuing us anymore. They were doing something much worse. What were they doing? Building. Doctor, while we retreated in defeat, the humans were constructing massive space stations around their damaged planet. Shipyards, defense platforms, research facilities. They were preparing for war on a scale we had never imagined. Dr. Veilthus made a final note. "What was your assessment when you returned home?" I requested an immediate audience with the High Command. I told them everything. The human network, their adaptation capabilities, their willingness to sacrifice anything to protect their species. Kethver's reflection in the window looked broken. I recommended that Earth be classified as a forbidden zone, that no Zephyrian ship should ever approach human space again, that we should pretend they do not exist and hope they forget about us. How did the High Command respond? They were horrified. Not by what the humans had done to us, but by what it meant for the Empire. If word spread that a primitive species had defeated the Zephyrian fleet, our other conquered worlds might rebel. The commander turned from the window. They classified the entire war as a training exercise gone wrong. All records were sealed. All survivors were sworn to secrecy. Officially, the human war never happened. But you requested this debriefing session because I knew the truth would come out eventually. And when it does, the Empire needs to be prepared. Dr. Veilthus looked up from his notes. Prepared how? 3 months after our defeat, our long-range sensors detected human ships exploring star systems near their homeworld. They were not just rebuilding, they were expanding. Kethver's voice cracked with fear. 6 months later, we detected human colonies being established on worlds we had never heard of. They were spreading across the galaxy faster than we thought possible. Are they still expanding? Every report we receive shows more human activity. More colonies, more ships, more exploration. They have found and contacted other species. Species that were also conquered by us. The commander sat down heavily in his chair. Doctor, the humans are building an alliance. They are sharing their technology, their network, their knowledge with every species that has been hurt by the Empire. Dr. Veilthus stopped writing entirely. An alliance against us? Against anyone who conquers innocent worlds. The humans call it the Galactic Liberation Front. They have convinced dozens of species to join them. Kethver's 4 eyes were wide with terror. But the worst part is what our intelligence teams discovered last week. The humans have not forgotten. U.S. They remember every ship, every weapon, every tactic we used against them. What do you mean? They are coming, Doctor. Human fleets are moving through the galaxy, liberating worlds we conquered, destroying our outposts, hunting down our ships. And they are getting closer to our space every day. The commander's voice became a whisper. Our computer models show that human forces will reach the edge of our territory within 2 years. When they arrive, they will not come as conquerors. They will come as liberators. Dr. Veltha set down his writing tool with shaking hands. What does that mean for the Empire? It means we have awakened something that will not stop until every conquered world is free, until every slave species is liberated, until every empire that commits conquest is destroyed. Kethver stood and walked to the door. Doctor, we thought we were attacking a primitive species. Instead,